Okay, let's start with something as simple and as basic as finding the total of all of these variables that we have here. And so we're simply saying that we're trying to now figure out how do we get the total for the scores of each of these 8 students that I have here. You're likely going to have up to 10 students based on the last task I asked us to do. If that's the case, you want to ensure that all of the students already have scores, of course, if you want to find their total. So I'm just going to fill in the scores of the remaining 2. I just left off there so that you'd see what I'm doing. So I'm simply selecting each of those cells or those boxes and entering numbers at random. So you want to do the same thing now. We just enter numbers at random. Okay, and having entered those numbers at random, the next thing we need to do would now be to ask SPSS to find us the total. And so to do that, SPSS would be using a particular string, okay, or a particular language to find the total, which is going to be the sum command. Okay, and so the sum command usually starts up with an addition of each of the variables. Of course, it's going to be looking somewhat like this, but not exactly the syntax. And so instead of the plus, we'll be having variable 1 comma variable 2. All right, let's just do that. Variable 2 comma variable 3, that way. That's going to be what the syntax is going to look like. So we're going to do the same thing here, and to do that we'll need to go over to transform. But before we go there, and to avoid any kind of mistake or errors, let us promptly save our contents right now. Of course, your output window comes out telling you that something has affected your SPSS sample file, right? And remember what we said we should do. We can comfortably close this output window and respond no to its request for us to save the contents, because we don't really need that information at the moment. So having saved that particular change we just made, we can comfortably click on transform. Okay, so from transform we go over to compute variable and click. All right, so having clicked on compute variable, I already have my expression here. So to make sure that we are all carried along, I'm going to go back there and pick the expression or enter the expression again, in which case we're going to start with the target variable, which is going to be total. And we're using total there simply because that is going to be the variable where we want our answers to be displayed. That's the idea. And so if we do not specify the target variable, chances are that we're not going to find our total at the right location, or SPSS might as well return us an error message. All right, now having done that, we'll need to now go over to the numeric expression area to now express or write out the numeric expression that would find the total for us. Okay, so to do that, what we'll do now will be to click on the function group and click on all. Okay, upon which we would now go down to the functions and specials variable, which basically lists all the formulas and functions under the function group. So to look for sum and locate it, it's going to be much faster if we click on any of the functions there and then press S, okay, to streamline our search down to the S category. So having gone into the first S item, we'll need to use our down arrow key or scroll down until we have identified sum, upon which we can now click on this arrow pointing up to take the sum over to the numeric expression area. All right, now having done that, we can remove the question marks, which by the way are representing the variables. So the variables would be inside the brackets instead of the question marks. So the question marks are only there simply because we have not selected or added any variable. So to ensure that we can put any variable in between our brackets, we'll need to delete those question marks. And so to delete the question marks, you press the delete key on your keyboard until all question marks are removed. Now we have a free rein now to begin to add each of our variables. So to do that, let's go over to Edu 101, okay, and click on this arrow pointing to the right. That takes Edu 101 in there, and we're going to separate it with a comma. We'll go to Edu 102 and separate it with a comma. We'll go to Edu 103, click on the arrow and then select it with separate it with a comma. I'll go to Edu 104, click on the arrow and separate it with a comma, and then edu 105, click on the arrow and separate it to the comma? No, we're not separating the edu 105 with the comma. And why is that? Think. That's because that is the last variable that we're trying to add. Remember that the variables we're trying to add are how many in number? They are 5 in number: 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So we're just going to stop there. We're not going to separate it with any comma. But if your previous task, in the previous task I asked us to do, you probably inserted more than 5 tasks, feel free to separate it with a comma and add those ones. Okay, now having done this, what we'll now go over to do will be to click on OK. All right, now SPSS asks us change existing variable. Yes, we want to change the existing variable to make sure it reflects what we've just done, and so we're going to click on OK to accept it. And SPSS brings out yet another output window telling us this is what it has been able to execute. It has been able to compute the total as being equal to the sum, open bracket, edu 101, edu 102, edu 103, edu 104, and then edu 105. It has executed that. So let's see if it actually did the right thing now, shall we? So to do that, of course, we'll still need to close this output window and click on no once again. We'll be doing a whole lot of that, so don't worry. So, and just over here you can see all the totals computed for us by SPSS. And so just like that, we've been able to compute the total and just do it right. Now keep in mind that what we did here was simple. We simply had to make sure that all of the variables were available. We had to make sure that the variables were there, and so the data too were there. So without the variable and the data, there's no way you can actually get a result. I think that's basically what statistics is about. You can't get your data without, you can't get a result without having your raw data, right? So the same thing applied here. So without having our variables all created first off, our results wouldn't have come out. So the simple thing is create your variables, insert your data, use the exact tool. So that's exactly what we did in the total. So keep in mind that what we did was to click on transform, then we clicked on compute variable, and then enter the target variable, expressed our numeric expression, and then clicked on OK, where we were then asked whether we wanted to change the variable, and we clicked on OK to say yes to that. I'm sure this made sense. All right, so find time to do some extra practice on this. So if you've done this, remove it, do it again, or probably add some extra variables just to get your hands a little more warmed up with this. Come next, in the next video, we're going to extend this idea a little with an introduction to measures of central tendency. This is getting nice, right? Okay, let's move.